Alright, everyone, welcome back to Middle School Career Readiness. Just wanted to start off by saying we are making the transition into Texas User Readiness. We are waiting on a few things before we finalize that transition, but that is coming, so stay tuned for that. Today's interview is going to be Soldier Stories. We haven't done this podcast series in a while, but we're trying to get it back up and running. So this is going to be season 1, episode 3, and I will let our guest speaker introduce himself.
Hey, Riley, thanks for having me. So my name is Gerald Ganaram. I was a former Apache helicopter pilot and commander. Did some time in Afghanistan, also commanded flight school. Graduate from the United States Military Academy. Army also saw fit to send me to Georgetown University to get my master's through an MBA. And now I'm also proudly vice president at the Bill of Rights Institute, where we provide civics curriculum to teachers at no cost to them. And it was at one of those programs that I actually got to meet you.
Yes, so for those of you who are watching and did not see the post, I recently got the opportunity to participate in the My Impact Challenge Civics Fair here in Dallas, or it was in Dallas, Texas. I did place third in that position, my project being the YouTube channel you're watching this video on. So, you said former Apache pilot. I know personally that you were in the Army. So, what made you choose Army specifically?
Yeah, so the Army itself is something that just all the military branches obviously have to do with service. And I kind of knew I wanted to serve um, a little during high school. And then when September 11th happened, I knew that's really what my calling was going to be. I always had this thought and grandeurs of being able to fly, and I'll tell you that that obviously made me think immediately Air Force, right? That makes sense. But then the more I got to learn more about the services, I realized that the difference that I saw them with is the Air Force. You had technical experts, people that are mastered their craft, especially on whatever that might be, and flying, obviously a big portion of that for those that choose to go that route. Where Army had the ability to fly too, but there it wasn't my primary focus. It would be an additional duty almost, where leadership would be the front and first thought that I would always have to have. That whole fight and win the nation's wars, but protecting America's sons and daughters, leading them. And I realized in high school, thankfully, I had a really good mentor, several good mentors that saw this affinity of leadership for me. And it was through those teachers that made me realize that, hey, maybe I'm somewhat good at this. And again, good being relative, right? I was still very young in my knowledge and everything else. But that kind of put me on this path, and the Army became the way that I saw that was the best way to lead first, and then if I'm lucky enough to fly while doing that, great, but it should always start with the leadership aspect of things. And again, I see Navy as kind of being in the middle of that. You have different tracks among all of these, and I'm talking very generally, of course, right? I'm making broad generalizations about the services, but that was my interpretation of it, especially at that time.
And you said that you were not only an Apache pilot, but an Apache commander. Could you talk a little bit more about what that entailed and what all the jobs you held throughout your military career entailed?
Oh, wow. All the jobs I've held. Anyone that's spent any amount of time in the military will tell you you will have a great many jobs. Even if you're in for just a year or two, the Army will find additional duties to give you and everything else. But in my primary roles, after I graduated from United States Military Academy at West Point, I went to flight school. And after my time in flight school, I went to Fort Carson, Colorado. And the first job that most new lieutenants have is that of a platoon leader. So I was in charge of a small group of officers and non-commissioned officers and enlisted individuals. Um, a platoon the is the is the next level echelon of a company, right? We have teams, we have squads, and we have platoons. I was that platoon leader which meant that I was the highest ranking for the platoon and the least experienced. Um, and that is why our non-commissioned officer NCO corps is so great in the Army, because they paired me with one of the most experienced people there, and I also had warrant officers as well. That's something that there's plenty of in the aviation world, especially with the Army. And they all guided me on, yeah, Lieutenant, you think you're doing that, but this is really the way you should do it. So I did the platoon leader job for a while. I then became something known as an S1 or adjutant in the Army, and that means I was in charge of a couple different things, mostly personnel. So it was a staff assignment that gave me great exposure to our command team and really increased my learning quite a bit. I went from that person that was always thinking about how I needed to defend my small unit in that platoon to someone that had to start looking at that bigger picture a little more, realizing that not everyone woke up every day thinking, oh, how can I mess with Gerald and his unit today? So I did that job. And then I was lucky enough to become the executive officer for a company, which meant I was second in command of it. I did some time in Afghanistan for Operation Enduring Freedom in the regional command south of Afghanistan, and love that job. There's nothing like being able to deploy as an Apache pilot, because you finally get to do your job in a different way. It's one thing when you're always training to do your job, but in combat arms, when you finally get to deploy, you're actively doing them. That's not something that everyone will get the opportunity to do in some cases, depending on the state of our country and how deployments will work and what cycles everything one will find themselves through. But it was something I was fortunate to do, and I did it with the best soldiers that anyone can ever ask for. It was the soldiers and officers that were with me that really made that possible, and had a great time doing all of that. I also then was selected to go to. We always have continuing education, so if anyone's interested in the military and you don't like school, well, tough luck. You're going to keep going back to school as much as they can. And so I went to a command course, and following that, while actually I was in the command course, I was interviewed for a couple different commands. I was at that fortune, and finally I was able to actually take on the call sign of Firebird 06 as the commander of the largest attack company in the world, that being the Firebirds and Flight School. So I got to do that for some time as well. That was probably a pinnacle of my career in a lot of cases. And we can get into that more if you want later. But again, the immense responsibility that the Army gives our very junior citizens is tremendous to me, and I've seen it time and time again through all services. But I was in charge of such a sacred mission at different points in my career when I was in my 20s. I talk to people that are managers of different companies and stuff, and I had 136 people under my command. I see people that have just 12 people in their leadership roles when they're in their 40s or so, and it's like, yeah, it just doesn't compare. But I loved every moment of it. And again, even from there, I kept going on doing a bunch of things. I was a strategist in the Army as well, but again, nothing like it.
So you're talking a lot good things about the Army. Next question is, if you had to go back in time, would you choose the Army again, or would you choose a different branch?
Absolutely, I would choose the Army hands down. Um, that is never even something I've looked back on as a should I have done this or that. And everyone has a different mission for them. I believe that. Like, yeah, I do believe the Army is better in a lot of ways, but I also joke about that, right? Everyone has to find out what their niche is and who their people are, who their tribe is, really, especially when it comes to the military. And so I've never had any second thoughts about it. And it's because of that leadership aspect for me. The Army is all about people and leading, especially in that officer corps and that non-commissioned officer corps. And the way that that structure is set up has made me grow at such an exponential rate from who I was, not just as a leader, but as a person in a lot of different capacity.
Okay. I did some research prior to this, and the Apache helicopter is one of the U.S. most advanced attack helicopters. So,
Oh,
why
it's
did
the
you
most
choose?
advanced attack helicopter. It's the most advanced helicopter we have in the world, Riley.
There
What do you
you
mean,
go.
one of the? It is the best helicopter we could ever have, brother.
So, why did you choose the Apache helicopter to be your flight aid?
That is a great question. And so I'll tell you, obviously, I love the aircraft. I have one right over my shoulder there if that gets captured in a frame. The Every aircraft has a different mission. And so we have Blackhawks that have this lift type of mission. We have Chinooks that are a heavy lift capacity. And then we have the Army's gunship. We have an aircraft that was designed to get shot at. That close air support mission where someone is out having trouble and they pick up the radio and they say help, and I can be there and I can have such a decisive effect on the battlefield. For me, it was yes, I was flying, but flying was just a way that my weapons platform operated. It was more like some people would spend entire briefings like, "Hey, it's all about the flight and how they're going to get there and stuff." For me, it's like, no, I'm going to get there, and now once I get there, let me tell you what the mission's going to be, how I'm going to affect the battlefield. It wasn't just dropping some people off and then moving out and being ready and on station or anything, getting ready to medevac them out. It was being there the whole time with them. And I'll tell you that for me, it even goes back to when you select your branch in the Army. So you go through whatever your commissioning program is going to be as an officer, and the Army will tell you, "Hey, don't worry, we'll give you one of your choices for branch," and they promise they will do that. And the way they promise they will do that is they have you list out every single one of the branches in a merit of order list, and you'll get one of them. And it's based on a couple different factors with military discipline, physical, all this other stuff. And I'll tell you that when when I was doing that list, aviation was number one for me. But then after that was infantry. I wanted to be part of that mission. So the way I looked at it, I think it was aviation, infantry, and military intelligence were the top ones I was looking at, definitely. And it was just based on my personality, how I wanted to impact the battlefield. And the Apache was the only aircraft that I felt for me resonated with that. So it was also in my class and the time that we were going through, it was very difficult aircraft to get, let alone getting through flight school with it. But I was very fortunate in having a good group of support people around me that helped me get through flight school. We studied together and everything else, and all of us actually went through the Apache program together in it. So a great thing about the military is also you make lifelong friends.
So, what would you say? You listed a lot of things you love about the Army, your specific jobs, um, things you thought were rewarding, but what would you say was the most rewarding part for you in your military career?
The very most. I'll have to try and change it to what's one of the most because I'm sure it's going to be a difficult thing for me to have to quantify. Um, the the people I met along the way, it has to be, and that's a broad way of putting it in a lot of ways, but um, I met and I was able to be transformed in such a way by people really leaving an impact on me. And yeah, sometimes it was the leaders that I had with me, the people that were above me. They definitely always left an impact, whether they were great leaders or some that maybe I took a page out of their book of things I don't want to be like in certain ways. Thankfully, they were rare for me. I had really good leaders, but also me then empowering my subordinates to be leaders. I had this when I was in command. My company in flight school was uh, 22 hours a day, doing things constantly. And I'll tell you that while that was happening, I obviously couldn't be there for everything. It was a massive undertaking, 136 soldiers, and I had to really empower these junior leaders. And they ended up calling themselves my cabinet. They thought it was a presidential administration, and we always had our cabinet meetings every week, and like they would go around and they knew the structure of it, but they knew that their entire job was to make it where I never had to do their job, but I had time to actually think about what I was doing. So I even had I had my right hand who was my XO that was constantly making sure I just had time to make decisions and have that decision space. And they ran with that authority. They loved they loved being under me and uplifting me because of how I empowered them. And that's always a lesson that's kind of gone with me. And even to this day, Riley, when we met in Dallas, one of the people that I got to meet with was that same executive officer, right? I got to meet up with some of my soldiers that are all over the place now. Every time I go somewhere else, I'm trying to see who's local to me and saying hi to them when we can, because that's the bonds that transcend even when I got out of the military. In the end, those are the same people coming back and just checking on me, making fun of me at different things. Some of them might see this and they're going to be like, "Oh, sir, I can't believe you told that story," or "Oh, you still have like that image over there isn't an image. That is a painting that one of my soldiers made dedicated to that aircraft," right? I can never tell my story anymore without telling the stories of so many other people, and I love that I've been able to have them touch my lives in that way.
I like that that was your answer. We've interviewed very few soldiers on here through our series Soldier Stories, but all the ones that we have, the same thing that they say that they loved about their particular branch was the camaraderie that they had. And I think that's something that you can find in any branch of the military. Um, that's something that people really enjoy through their military experience. And so we talked about your most rewarding part. What would you say was one of or some of the biggest challenges you faced while in the military?
Oh, there's so many of them. Yeah, that's a tough one for a lot of reasons. I'll tell you that when I think about the challenges, it's almost the same thing, right? It was times that I felt like I may have let down those soldiers around me, or those times that we we could have done more, feeling like, again, we have such an amazing mission. We can change the battlefield, but we're not omnipotent. We're not God. And there were limits to what we can do on the battlefield and in each other's lives. And one of the things that would be the most difficult is any time that we had some type of incident, right? Whether it was an aircraft going down or otherwise for some reason. And I remember actually the gravity of it one time where I was talking to I had great people that worked under me under command. I will always say that. Broken record now, but this one guy was staying late, and I was so happy with everything he had been doing. I had just taken command, and he was just my right hand doing all this stuff. And so I pick up the phone and I call his wife to just say, "Hey, thank you for letting him stay here and doing all these things." But when I pick up the phone, immediately there's fear in her voice, and she's like, "Sir, is Joe okay?" And I realized that they weren't used to, the families weren't even used to the commander calling with good news or something else like that. It was right, oh no, like he's calling, something is wrong. And I realized that that was something I needed to change, where I wanted to be there not just for when bad things happened. I wanted to be there and have a relationship with their families when things were good, so that when I did have to deliver bad news, they weren't crying on my shoulder because I was the only shoulder there, but they were crying on my shoulder when they want because I was the one they wanted to comfort them. And I'll tell you that that ended up really coming into play for me when one of my soldiers had went down in his aircraft after he left me. Me and him had left the unit a year later, or later, like maybe 6 months later after we both left the unit. I was in another assignment, and so was he. His aircraft went down, and I got notified that part of his request with everything happening was for me to be part of the notification process. Even though I wasn't his commander anymore, he still wanted me as part of notification with when his wife and family were told and stuff. And to have that impact on someone is tremendous, and to be there for that family is an honor. And it just goes to how deep those bonds can be. And again, stellar guy. I couldn't imagine what my life would have been like if I didn't have Chief Warrant Officer Ford Jason McCormick at my side. But I will always think about how that's probably what always pulled on me the most, was if there was some way to do more, recognizing that we couldn't, and just taking advantage of the moments we do have with the people that we can affect around us.
And so you've talked about the reason why you joined the Army was for the fact that flying wasn't your main technical expertise. Your main expertise was in leadership, and flying was something that you liked and were able to do in that position. So, what is your definition of leadership um, inside and outside of military environments?
Yeah, so I see leadership as the ability to motivate others to accomplish a mission by providing purpose, motivation, and direction. I like to adjust a little also that classic definition with um, the ability to motivate a person to accomplish a mission they may not otherwise do on their own, right? If I know you're going to Starbucks and I go over to you and be like, hey, you should go to Starbucks, I'm not really leading you that much, right? Now I'm just that buzz in your ear trying to give you suggestions and stuff and being annoying. So I always think of that as the classic definition of leadership. But that to me doesn't go far enough. I think that the aspect we're missing there on just a straight textbook definition of leadership is still that it's missing the why of leadership and the service component of leadership. I believe very much in something that is referred to a lot now as servant leadership. And that's where a leader can generally still be someone by that definition that is maybe missing some characters that we may want leaders to have. They might be self-serving, selfish, things that we don't typically want. We typically think about those leaders now as, oh, that's a toxic leader. As soon as you say those types of things and associate them with leaders, some people have very distasteful things about what they think about some of our politicians these days, right? And so for me, a servant leader, though, is the exact opposite of that. Instead of seeing a group of people and being like, hey, I'm in charge here, and what can I do to kind of use this as a stepping stone, and all of you will help uplift me, the servant leader does the exact opposite. They see that group and they're like, all right, I have the privilege of serving you and getting us through this. How can I get down in the mud, put all of you on my back, and I may even have some detriment put on me, but the rest of you can get lifted out of this mud or whatever we're in now because I was able to achieve that. That is what I think the style of leadership we need more and more now is. And that's why I was really excited about that time that we spent doing the My Impact Challenge, right? You had young leaders that were taking an interest in their community, seeing a problem, and then doing something about it. And you got to see your other peers that were over there and all the projects and the scale of what all of you were doing. And that's a reason that why, I mean, our sponsor for that was Travelers Insurance, right? This isn't a no-name company or something, and they're still able, Travelers is taking a look at this and realizing, yeah, we need more of this. If we can all do that little bit in our immediate circle, yes, everyone thinks, oh, I want this grand scale and stuff. Sure, but you start somewhere because that impact can be so immediate. You have seen, and the reason why you got third place is you have seen impact, right? You have
Mhm.
those testimonials, you know what you're doing. And a leader that is going through this cycle, if they see this and they start to veer off course, people won't want to go with them unless they're forced to. But a leader that's in this same thing gains more and more traction with things, right? That's why we're able to pull in a company like Travelers to bring us into this. That's why we have all these other sponsors and stuff that want to be part of this because they see, yeah, no, it's not about what we're trying to do with building ourselves up and everything else. It's about how we do things better for everyone else, and that's why I'm even here with you today.
I think that's a very good answer. The leadership, I would say that I have more experience in is not so much the military ranks, but using this as an example, I've interviewed several fire chiefs. So if you, for people who don't know about the fire department ranks, fire chief is your highest rank. Um, and then under that, you usually have one deputy chief, and then you usually have a group called your command staff, which is they're all assistant chiefs. And assistant chiefs operate with battalion chiefs. And battalion chiefs are the basically would be your equivalent of an NCO or non-commissioned officer. They're the highest ranking field personnel. And some chiefs talk about how they like to be the ones to give the orders to everybody. And then other chiefs talk about how they weekly or monthly bring in their assistant chiefs, bring in their battalion chiefs, and have a meeting. And instead of saying, do this, do that, they say, what do you need from me? What do you need from me as a leader? I think that's a great answer that you gave, and definitely something that I've seen with my experience in leadership.
Yeah, I'll tell you that the classic way the Army does leadership, when they look at their officer corps and their non-commissioned officer corps, officers will generally tell you what needs to get done. They're looking at things at a higher level with how to put everything together, and the non-commissioned officer can run with just that and be like, "You told me what needs to get done. Now I'm going to figure out how to do it. I don't need you to get in the weeds to do that. I can figure this out." There's one thing that enables that, and that is asking the question why, knowing commander's intent. If I know what needs to happen and why, when, not if, when things don't go according to plan, I can change the plan and still accomplish whatever we needed to do. And that can be whether bullets start flying or whether just the weather changes. If it's something that things don't go according to schedule, that's why I'm saying it's not just a civilian thing. That same mindset can just permeate everything. But why is something that I came into the Army and there was almost this culture at different times that you would get told, I don't have time to tell you why. I just need you to do it. Sure, that might be the case occasionally, very rarely, but if there's a minimum that you need, it is that why. Because things aren't going to go according to plan. And when that happens, everyone can still assume different roles. The Army, what I love about what we do is that if someone doesn't show up to work in some type of way in most organizations, I've seen a lot of leaders be like, okay, that person can't do it. I'm going to go down and backfill what they were doing and I'll help out. There's some noble thinking with that, but I'll tell you what I have always preferred to do is that when someone doesn't show up, whoever was beneath them needs to take up that slack. It makes it where everyone grows into positions. You always know the positions and the jobs of the people above you, so you're always ready to take that. Anyone that is worried that, oh, they're going to take my job and stuff like that, you're not thinking about this the right way. You want your people to grow so they can take your job. You want them to be able to take your job. Every one of us needs to be replaceable in some type of way. I don't want to gatekeep my job because I'm hoping at some point I'm probably going to have to go and do something else. And that's the one thing with life. We can't control completely like what's going to happen to us. And I don't want an organization to fail because I didn't train everyone else to do my job. It shouldn't be that when I leave a place, it falls apart. Yeah, no, that's great for my ego. It's not good for the organization. And if I want to be a leader that loves, I need to be someone that makes sure that I'm the first person that can be replaced. But I do it in a way where everyone is already ready to do that without me. I've had plenty of things that were medical emergencies or otherwise where that had to come into case. That second command I mentioned to you, we were talking when we were in Dallas, and he was telling me, he's like, "Sir, I had to take command after I had the job for I was in the position for maybe a year at that point, and he had just taken over his new position, and within like 2 weeks or so, I was on a medical table for something, and I first call was to him, letting him know I needed to take command, and you got this. Like, just there's the paperwork, you're good." I didn't have to give him directions what to do because he already should know. Now, again, he's telling me he was terrified at the prospect, but he had been doing it and seeing how I had done it and seeing how the company had been working so long and how this was that it's intimidating for anyone to step into this, but at the same time, it wasn't that he wasn't prepared. It was just those jitters that any one of us can have taking on something so monumental. But and fear isn't a bad thing to have. Nervousness isn't a bad thing. But don't let that sell you short on not trying to do those things.
Mhm. And that goes back to what we talked about with the My Impact Fair, raising up the next generation of leaders, not necessarily uh, young in terms of years of age, but the next generation of leaders that can take your leadership position when you either have to move to a different position or retire from that particular position. Uh,
Riley, succession planning is a great thing, right? And think about
yeah.
everything you're doing specifically, even with this, right? You have to think about at some point, hey, you know what? I'm going to go and do whatever your next service is going to be. You have to figure out if you're going to college, if you're going to go into some type of job, you may not have the time to do this. What happens afterwards? It's not just about me doing things. It's also people that might look at this channel just being like, yeah, no, I might be interested in some of these service jobs and stuff like that. Cool. But also, what if someone's looking at you and then thinking, hey, if he was able to do that, maybe I can do something similar for something else. Where we're not competing against each other, but we're all lifting
Mhm.
each other up, right? Where it's all one. It's never. People always paint this picture. It's us versus them. Hey, right in our Constitution is we the people. It is us all together doing things together, right? And I like to always go back to that because it you don't have to be someone that mentors someone or someone that's a role model or I guess look up to at a certain age or point or career milestone in your life. I've had different people that I've been thankful to be a role model at when I was much younger, and this can happen in your families, in your churches, in your communities, whatever it is. And you'll be amazed at who you never know who's looking up to you in some cases.
So we've talked about how to be a good leader. We've talked about difficulties and rewarding parts with being a leader. What would you say is one time in your experience that you would say your leadership was tested?
There are a few points. There are many points. I think a good leader will have opportunities come to them countlessly to test their leadership. Um, I mean, even when I was very young, one of the first things I had to do, that first platoon leader position I mentioned to you, I had a warrant officer that had to be counseled on writing checks. And I was like, and just finance stuff. And he had gone over on some credit card and stuff. And I'm like, what is this? This guy was 20 years older than me. And I'm having to figure out a conversation with him on this. But it made me always remember to just start those conversations with that, just asking why, getting more information, not being the young, brash person I was of like starting off almost recklessly with something demeaning like "What are you, an idiot?" Right? Like I had to learn and be put in a lot of positions to have tact. And I'll tell you, every leader will go through tests. A large one for me is definitely going to be I had a traumatic brain injury, and I've shared that with you in the past that um, when I had that injury, I first woke up for it, didn't know my name. I didn't know what year it was. I didn't know where I was. I was very confused on everything that was happening. Couldn't use my arms and legs correctly. I wouldn't be able to eat solid food for 9 months. But I had all of these. The one thing I did remember, Riley, is that I was an Apache helicopter pilot, and I had all that bravado and stuff. And so even with all the stuff, they're like, "Hey, it might be a few months before you can do these things." And I was like, "Oh," they told me it was going to be 6 months for one thing, and I was like, "6 months? I need 6 hours." Um, yeah, that didn't happen. I ended up needing a few years actually with my incidents, but I went through massive depression from that. And that whole experience really tested me as a leader because I felt like I was no longer a leader. I felt like I didn't, I had lost something in myself. Like whether it was my physical abilities, not being able to move and stuff, eventually being discharged, retired from the army. Um, all of those things factored in and made it where I just lost. I thought everything about me, my identity and everything, and I had to learn how to quickly forge forward through that. And I say quickly to on and off this ripple effect over years with some trials and tribulations to realize that there are other ways that I can continue to serve and still be a leader. That maybe I might have taken off the uniform, but I never took off the values.
Alright, everyone, so sorry to interrupt today's episode, but I do want to mention our affiliates. Starting off strong with Refuge Medical. Refuge Medical is a company who has been started that started in Oklahoma. They provide a variety of high quality medical gear, whether you're looking for a small first aid kit in the IFAC, whether you're looking for a house first aid kit, a car first aid kit, if you're looking for a heavy duty trauma kit, or even a backpack first aid kit for professional medical or for medical professionals, they have everything. If you would like to go purchase from them, make sure to go check our link in the description. It will give you 10% off, and 10% of your order, of the price of your order, goes straight to us to help us make more episodes like this possible. Next up, we have Xshear. This is our main product, the Xshear. This is a black version. Very simple design, but very heavy duty product. So basically they're what they are. They're trauma shears. And they can cut through a variety of things. I did a review video on them if you would like to go check out that, as well as they have videos of them cutting through things that you're probably never going to have to cut through with these as a medical professional on their YouTube channel. Make sure to go check out that out. As well as they have a variety of holsters for their Xshear. They have the newest one that they just came out with, which is the micro holster. So this mounts like this on the waistband of your pants, and the Xshear goes in just like that. You can clip this onto pretty much anything with the versatile hook on the back. You can click it onto joggers, jeans, a belt, a backpack, an IFAC, anything you need to. Here's another example. This is the first gen tactical holster meant for duty belts or plate carriers. I have it to mount sideways like this on a duty belt. However, you can mount it any which way with the versatile hook and same system in the back. That screw right there allows you to rotate them. And they have a second gen, which is an auto release, not the manual release. This one is. It is a auto release, just like the micro holster. Over on their website, they have a variety of colors, and they also have a soft holster, which has no locking mechanisms, meant for scrubs and stuff like that. And then last but certainly not least, our newest partner is Element Hydration. Make sure to go check out the link in our description for them. it will give you a discount. So all you have to do with Element Hydration is you get these little packets like this. Now I already pre-opened this one, but you get these little packets like this. You open a 16-ounce bottle of water like this. Now if you have a 32-ounce, you're going to want to put the whole packet. But I have a 16-ounce bottle of water, so I'm going to want to get the bottom part of it and just put half of the packet straight into my water. Just like that. Right? Half the packet in. Put that to the side. Grab my water. Put the cap back on. And you pick it up. And you have a perfectly good hydration drink ready to go. Now, the thing about Element is they're not using any chemicals that you can't read or even pronounce. Their main ingredient is salt. Yes, salt. Okay. The main ingredient is salt. Also, their packets are filled with magnesium and potassium, which allow you to absorb more electrolytes and energize you throughout your day. So this can be used as a pre-workout, a post-workout. You can drink it during your workout. You can drink it in the morning to help you refresh yourself after waking up. You can use it throughout your day, no matter what you're using for. It is awesome. Now, I just want to read you the ingredients here. And notice how I can read all of these, okay? Salt, citric acid, magnesium, potassium, natural flavors, and stevia leaf extract. So this also has no sugar. It has 100 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. And it is a total of 2 carbs. So, like I said, if you would like to check them out, go to the link in my description. It will give you a discount on your order, and it also helps support myself and the content that we create here at TYCR. If you want more information on how salt is the best hydration, also go check out their website. They have a whole section dedicated to that type of science. And without any further interruptions to today's episode, I will let you get back to it. We've talked about how your definition of a good leader is someone that's able to motivate someone to do or to complete a mission that they wouldn't do on their own without your leadership, guidance, assistance. What would you say is your way of motivating someone, building trust with someone, and helping them to accomplish that goal as their leader?
Let them surprise you. Let them trust them. Let people put them in positions, and just like that officer just says what to do and not the how to do it, let them come up with that solution. It's the whole give them the rope to hang themselves type of thing. They're not going to hang themselves. It's a completely different aspect of things. It's a how do we I was on an aircraft carrier a couple of years ago. And I was there with the Secretary of the Navy had brought me, and we're going through, and we're seeing this is a 5,500 person people, 5,500 people on this vessel. It's the USS Bush. And as this is all happening, we go over to the cockpit, right, where they're steering the ship. This large thing that's a skyscraper laid down on its side. And the person driving the ship, this large vessel, is 18 years old. 18. And he's driving this entire thing. Granted, he has some supervisors kind of watching what's going on, and it's not like he's the only person in the room. There's a whole bunch of people helping him steer this, but he's the one behind this wheel. And go up to him and ask him, hey, how long have you been doing this? When did you get your license? He was like, oh, my license? Oh, I got my license to drive a car last week, right? Before I came out onto the ship. Did we let that stop him? Did we have to, just try and do... Yes, training is important. But at some point, you need to let people run. So let people run. Like, if you're going to lead them, get out of their way also.
That's good. I like that. You've talked about things that you learned from from being in the army,
Mm-hmm.
um, things that you've applied already in your civilian career or post-army career. But what would you say are some leadership lessons that the army taught you that you apply in your everyday life in your civilian career?
I'll tell you, leadership lessons come all over the place. I learned a lot about leadership from my mother, actually. And I've let that influence maybe the majority of my leadership style over the years. She was probably my first example of that servant leadership and a leader that really sacrifices for others. In the army, one of the things I got was I started to hone my command philosophy and this concept I developed of not serving fires that I kind of mentioned before. A leader can get really in the weeds with, I always have some fire that's going on. There's some type of trouble that's going on. And you can almost spend 90% of your time on 10% of the issues that are really affecting things. And I didn't want that to be my legacy. And so what I decided was instead of just serving these fires, what I want to do is remember the other 90% of the people in my organization, otherwise, that were helping me get this stuff done and reward them. And that's why anytime that I had to take some type of negative action in some type of way, my goal was to always go out of my way to do three positive actions to make sure I recognize that, like, whether it was people that were getting in trouble for something or whatever it was, making sure I write those awards. Like, hey, something negative happened to us. I need to make sure I go out there and I recognize three people for all the good work they've been doing. It helped it where it wasn't just I didn't even want it to be balanced, right? I wanted it to be lopsided. I wanted to make sure that if you are leading these great organizations, remind them that they're great and take care of them in that way. I got to see so many of my guys promoted over the years and such, and it's warmed my heart to see that they're still massive leaders in our army today.
Okay. Um, and we've talked a little bit about what your civilian careers are. Um, I want to touch on two specific careers that you had after your military experience. So you mentioned uh, you're the vice president, one of the vice presidents of Bill of Rights Institute. Could you talk a little bit more about what that entails, what you do, how you're a leader in that specific capacity?
Absolutely. So the Bill of Rights Institute, like I mentioned, we provide civics curriculum teachers at no charge. And the important thing about that is right now, when we service K through 12, teachers will use the textbook that they're assigned for history, social studies, whatever it is, 2 out of 5 days a week typically. What are they doing for the other three? Now they're using our stuff. We service over 90,000 teachers that are reaching over 9 million students. Um, and we're doing it in a way that, yeah, we cover 500 years of history, right? Everything that leads up to what America is and then that. But it's specific in that we want to make sure that your generation and everyone that comes after you, I want you to know your rights. Absolutely. There are rights that come with being a citizen, and you should have those. However, the other part about being a citizen and not just a subject is that you have a responsibility. We have a responsibility as citizens to make sure that we understand these rights and that we also do right by each other. There are things that we should constantly do in this mindset that we should have of being someone that's a change maker like you. And so when I think about that aspect of things, that's really what got me started with the Bill of Rights Institute and why our connection worked out so well. Because what I get to do now is I wear a couple different hats and I touch a couple different sections. Some of it is trying to make sure that everyone is aware of what we're doing, right? I'm out there doing speeches or other things, trying to inform people, meeting with people. I was just doing some events in DC and meeting with other military leaders, other industrial leaders about what we're doing. Because if you're a teacher, chances are that if you're teaching history, you probably know us, right? In some states, 50% of the teachers there that teach history and social studies use our stuff. Great. I definitely want to get to those other 50%. But also, what I want to do is make sure that if you aren't in the education space, you know who we are too, because we take no federal funding. We do everything that we do by donations, individual donations, foundations, corporations. And that's something to make sure that we can never be seen as someone that just takes from certain administrations or anything, right? We want to make sure that we're not biased. We don't want a commentary to be put on history, and we've talked about that before. We want to make sure that history is history and everyone can have these thoughts about what they want that to what that means for them, how we want critical thinking. I also want people to debate how people did things. I want people to have things structured in a way where you and your classmates can have a debate on whatever it is. Is Congress still effective, right? I have a whole point and counterpoint debate thing that we have as part of our curriculum on that and many other questions that you can disagree with each other, but at the same end of the day, you can then still go out and be friends with each other, right? With like debate and civil discourse should be part of our environment. Yes, STEM has an important place, but knowing history also reminds us that critical thinking is important. Knowing where we've been helps us figure out how to get further in the future and maybe what mistakes not to make, but also what worked right. So yes, I have a aspect of things that I do. I do some brand awareness stuff. I do some different things with fundraising, and then I'm also reaching out and obviously I'm on the program side of things too, going to judge things and talk at the different events like I did with your group in Dallas. I was just over in my Michigan as well in Bay City, where we spent all day with 900 students there, just talking to them on on our Constitution Day about a wide variety of things. And I just came back from Orlando a couple days ago as well, just also highlighting how everyone has these needs that we can have these sit down conversations with everyone. And sometimes it just takes having a conversation to spark this notion and almost this desire to learn more, right? We should always, every good leader I know is always trying to learn something new every day. And great ones will try and teach something every day. And that is something that I'm thankfully in a position now where I'm getting to still do that. I'm still learning. I'm still hopefully getting to teach and mentor along the way, meeting great people like yourself of all different places around our country and all different ages as well. And I mean, that's the part of my job I love.
I think um, what you talked about that the Bill of Rights Institute does, it, it goes back to for the civics fair in Dallas, why you guys chose the Holocaust and Human Rights Museum. They had their Upstander program and the presentation that the woman did on what it means to be an upstander, someone who sees something that's not right or that's an issue that needs to be fixed and doesn't just say, hey, this needs to be fixed, but actually acts upon it and tries to get it fixed to the best of their abilities. Um,
Yeah,
that,
and I think you definitely highlight that right there because what you're noticing is that it isn't just about we all complain, right? All of us are pretty good at complaining. I'm great at it, Riley. But I'll tell you what we need more of. We talked a lot about and at everything I go to, it's really easy to have a conversation about our founding principles, those founding values and stuff and what that means. But one of the most important ones that I think about a lot, that's also one of the Army values, is that courage aspect of things. Courage. And when you look at what we use as the backdrops for a lot of the things we do, I think that you can't overlook that anytime you want to bring change into the world, whether it's even if it's something that's good, that you know is inherently good, um, it takes courage to step out from the crowd. It takes courage to do things a different way. It takes courage to ask questions in some cases.
Mhm.
There are even places where it takes courage to complain. And I think that one of the things I will always highlight is how we need more courage. And when I've gone and I've asked different groups, and I love talking to high schoolers about this, where I ask them, "Hey, what do you want more from your leaders?" And I'll tell you, the majority of the time, courage is what sums it up. We want those that represent us, that lead with us, to have the courage to not go with what the masses want, but to do what's right. And if it's like, if just one person would do this and that, and people are like, oh, one person can't make a difference, maybe it starts with one and it goes from there. I've seen ripple effects do tremendous things in life.
I like that you brought up the courage aspect because that's one of the things that I try to incorporate and talk about as much as possible. I did talk about it in my pitch that I gave to you and the fellow judges. Um, the what I'm trying to do with this channel is give people the courage to be able to pursue the careers that they're wanting to, specifically in public safety, but it doesn't have to be in public safety. If they want to be a business major, if they want to be an entrepreneur, if they want to be, doesn't have to be in public safety, but showing them, hey, these people started from here and were able to get to where they are now. So can you. It's not something that people are born for. It's something that they're, I guess you could say, shaped into or brought into. And I just forgot what I was going to say.
No worries. See, it even takes courage just to do that. For
Yeah.
someone to admit that, yeah, I'm not perfect. And hey, I just made a mistake. Or hey, where was I going with that? Even on something that's very public facing, especially, that takes courage.
Mhm.
I've never been in a situation where it was just my walk on water resume that got people to connect with me. It instead had to be the aspect of, hey, here are all my faults too. Because if you go into life trying to just be this perfect person, what people will think is actually, oh, this guy's got it all together. He's just lucky. And they kind of tune you out.
Yeah.
But if you're vulnerable with people, you tell them, oh, you know what? I'm doing this whole thing. I should be better at this. This is podcast what out of this. It's season what out of this. And I can still make mistakes. It's like, okay, if he's doing that on this, maybe it's not so intimidating with this. And I can talk to him about it. It's all almost like I remember the time I did something like that. Now they want to talk to you about whatever it is, right? When I can be vulnerable about even the depression I had, it's sometimes people are like, hey, I've been there. I remember where there was, or I know someone that was doing that. Oh, that head injury, that sounds like this. Hey, I remember when this happened to me. It makes people want to talk to you, connect with you. And I think that's really something that is important this day and age.
Absolutely. Um, so moving more towards a career readiness type aspect here, what would you say is some advice you have for some young people who are wanting to join the military?
Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. First and foremost, right? Your job is to fight and win the nation's wars, protect America's sons and daughters. You know what? The military has a bunch of. The good thing about doing this at home is I have my desk with all this stuff. The military has a bunch of different books and manuals, right? This is a checklist for the Apache helicopter. right? All right, cool. I have a whole manual on step by step what to do for that. I have a air tactical standard operating procedure manual that also goes into a bunch of different things. I have it tabbed up and everything else for my time there. I had a knee board with all these different more things that I had to have with checklists and everything else, right? We have checklists and books around everything. And what's really important to recognize with all of that is that'll only get you so far if your head's not in it for the right reasons. You can't be joining the military because, oh, well, I do want to serve under this type of administration or not this one, right? We don't swear an oath. Our oath of office is not to a person. Our oath of office is to the Constitution, right? Not to an institution beyond that. It is the Constitution. And that's important to recognize for people that when you're looking at going into the service, you have to be ready to serve. You will, in a lot of cases, be forfeiting some of the privileges that the rest of our society gets to enjoy. But it shouldn't come as something that you're looking at in that way. If you are, and that's something you wrestle with, it's not for you, and that's not a bad thing, right? Not everyone is meant to serve in the military. There can be other ways that you can serve your communities. You have a whole channel dedicated to them, right? I don't need to talk to your audience about that. But when it comes to the military, you will be going to places that you don't choose. You will be doing things that you may not completely want to do. And the whole time you are writing a check to the United States government up to including your life that they can cash out at any point. And that takes a different type of person in a different type of situation in some cases. And it doesn't have to be a career. You can start off slow and kind of go from there. I always find it, I always look at someone a little funny when they tell me, oh, I want to go in the Army and do 20 years. It's like, you don't know what you're doing yet. And that's okay. You start small and go from there. And if I see you doing 40 in the end, power to you. But it's something that for me, I can't stress enough. We all go in for different reasons. But one of the primary reasons needs to be that you want to serve this country.
I think that goes back to what we talked about with courage. And what this YouTube channel is trying to do. If the military, if public safety, fire, EMS, police, that kind of stuff, if it's not something that is for you, that's fine. It's not for everyone. But if it is for you, there's a lot of people that it is for them, but they get discouraged. They get pushed back. They don't like certain things about it. But what we're trying to do is give them the courage to say, hey, you might go through trials to get here, but you're eventually going to get there. You're going to get to where you want to be as long as you keep pushing. If you don't have the courage, if you don't push through, you're just going to get stopped. You're just going to stop in your tracks.
You gotta forge forward, Riley. Right? You have to go through all these moments, and yeah, you can get heated up, but instead of melting, just get heated up. Go through that furnace, make something more of yourself. But it's also something that we have to change our society to realize that it's also okay to say this didn't work out. I tried it. Hey, I commend you for trying. I appreciate every bit of service that you want to do it in that field. But if it doesn't work out, don't be afraid to deviate to something else afterwards.
Absolutely. The next one is, how would you say someone could prepare mentally, physically, and academically for a career in the military?
So I'll tell you, there are a bunch of different things out there on getting ready for basic training and all of that. The one thing I feel they miss is, as time gets closer, spend time with your friends and family, because all of those relationships will be strained when you go into the military. So they're only going to be as strong as you leave them, and then they'll possibly weaken from that point. Distance does do some things. Your inability to contact through other points will also put a strain on things. And so I'll say that remember part of the reason why we do this service is because of the loved ones we have. Yeah, it's the love that we have for the country and the ability to give us those freedoms and stuff and the people we haven't even met that are worthy of that service and sacrifice. But it is also the people close to home. And so my recommendations to people when they're always like, "Hey, how do I prepare and stuff?" It's, "Hey, stop doing the rucksack marches and preparing yourself completely. Yeah, keep doing your physical training and all that stuff, but also take the time to have dinner with your families. Go out with your friends, go to the movies, have those memories because that's what's going to get you through while you're down in the mud, raining, questioning every decision that got you to this point and thinking, oh, all my friends are having probably hot dogs on the pier right now doing this, and here I am doing this. What am I doing?" But you still have those memories to even hang on to. That's like, oh, if they could see me now, they would be giving me hell for this, and it's all good.
I like that. Our last several questions here, getting into the last several ones. These are more of like personal, fun questions here. Um, Talked a little bit about this at the My Impact Challenge. So you mentioned you were the Top Gun for the Apache helicopter. My question to you is between Top Gun 1 and Top Gun 2, which one do you prefer and why?
um, yeah, so the Top Gun awards are given in the Army to those that are the best shooting crews, is how it works on the Apache side of things. I will tell you that again, I had a great unit, and I had the best. There was no one better that could fly that aircraft, make that aircraft dance, shoot, move, and communicate with that aircraft than my company. I was extremely impressed with them the entire time. Um, and I'll tell you that what I loved about just those Top Gun movies is I'll be honest, I didn't care too much for the first one. That second Top Gun movie, I got to give the Navy credit where credit is due. They did a masterful job with that, especially with the history components of things. There are a lot of details that pilots can pick up on all of it, and I appreciated that.
The next one is what would you say is one thing that maybe is a misconception about uh, military service, maybe specifically in the Army, maybe just military service in general, and that one thing that people don't really expect, but that is there once you go into uh, that career.
Um, a misconception is that it's that we have to bully each other. I think that people have this conception that basic training needs to be something that is um, like only yelling and just parading and stuff. And there's a place for some of that on a small scale. But what I'll tell you, it's there has to be a reason for everything, right? Some people need someone yelling at them just because we're trying to shock someone at a moment. Why do we need to shock someone at a moment? Because maybe bullets might be a shock to you at some point, right? So we're doing this on a different scale. So sometimes I do want to see how you're going to react to fear, so that you're not experiencing it for the first time in that. Um, but we don't need a hazing environment to do that, and that's definitely something I'm so glad we have gotten away from that culture for so long, right? Like we've continued to step further and further away from that since I had been in and everything else. And I'll tell you that that's probably the biggest misconception I've seen is that oh, you're gonna go into the military and just get bullied the entire time. It's like, no, what? You think I want to train leaders that are bullies? Like I'm doing something wrong if that's the intent behind it. And again, intent is important. Um, I wouldn't have the respect I do for our armed services and stuff if we're all acting like bullies. Think about that, even the term, right? Like all of us associate that with, no, you don't want to hang out with those people. So that's not what it's about. It is about leading. We might put people in stressful positions, but that's because at the end of the day, none of us want to write a letter home about something that happened and be like, I wish I'd stressed him out more. I wish that I'd put her through this instead so that she was prepared for this because I could have done more, right? No one wants to do that. So, yeah, we'll put some stressors in there, but it should never be hazing. That's not a culture we have. It's not one I ever want. We're not bullies, we're leaders.
One of the last ones here. What would, if you could give one last message to students and viewers about leadership and military service, what would that be?
You know, we talked a little bit about this, Riley, when it comes to the term hero and how that's how we use that as a society. And I'll tell you that I know a lot of people that I've heard use that term in different ways, and I typically always agree with it. But one thing I want everyone to notice is that when you when you're talking about someone that you classify as a hero, um, they never attribute that label to themselves, right? Someone at different points, you even saw on stage when they had an introduction for me, someone had used that term, but it's never one I attribute to myself. People that I call heroes never use that word on themselves. We never call ourselves heroes. And for that reason, it's even more important that if you have heroes in your life, tell them that they are heroes to you. I have seen such ripple effects happen from someone acknowledging the kindness that other people have that can be heroic things. I saw someone, a friend of mine, shared that she just helped someone get bus fare somewhere real quick, and she was doing it not even thinking about it. And like 2 weeks later, she ran into the person, and they gave her a gift card that was for Starbucks that said "Thank you for being a hero." That day that they were doing this dance, trying to pat themselves down, they couldn't figure out where their Metro card thing was, and all of a sudden she just swiped through and like, hey, don't worry about it. Just changed their day so much, right? Like the smallest things can have negative ripples on us, but when someone acts in a heroic manner for us, whether it's life saving, as many of these things may be, but you don't have to be in the front seat of an Apache helicopter to do something for others, to serve others. Even in those dark moments, you can make a difference. And those people that have made a difference in your life, let them know the heroic things they've done so that we can all encourage each other to keep forging forward.
Okay. The last one, I know I've been asking all the questions here, but do you have any questions for me before we conclude the episode?
How have you liked things since, how has things changed for you or adapted since you finished the My Impact Challenge with us in Dallas?
Um, well, I've definitely gotten a few more interviews and stuff like that that we have planned so far from that. Um, Definitely getting some more not advanced, but different types of technology to make these episodes possible with the funding that I received from that. Like right now, all I have is a laptop I'm doing this on and a simple, um, I forget the brand of it, but a simple action camera that I'm using as my web camera here. Um, but I'm getting using those funds to get a professional uh, photography and video camera, to get a drone to capture drone footage, um, professional uniform. Like this is literally just a polo shirt with a embroidered text on there, getting a little bit more professional uniform there.
Hey,
Um,
you start somewhere though. No, I'm glad to hear that it was able to make a difference and it wasn't something that's like that's what I love about these. No one that wins this thinks, oh, I'm just cashing in. It's no, how do I invest this to keep doing what I'm doing?
mhm.
Love it.
That definitely has been beneficial.
No, well, hey, Riley, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being with you today.
Thank you for, you mentioned you have a very tough schedule. I thank you for taking the time out of your day to make this happen.
Anytime, man. Take care.
Thank you everyone for watching till the end. If you liked this video, make sure to go like, subscribe, and comment down below what you want to see next from Texas Youth Career Readiness. If you want to see more videos on public safety, make sure to check out the podcast Behind the Scenes Public Safety. If you want to see inside an inside look at public safety. Look at the videos of what's inside. We have a station tour that was done in South Padre Island that is out on that. And if you want more soldiers stories episodes, make sure to go look at the podcast on YouTube for soldier stories. Once again, thank you to everybody who coordinated this and helped make this interview possible. As I mentioned earlier on in the podcast, make sure to go check out our affiliates, Refuge Medical, Element Titration, and X-Shear. Links will be in the description as well. And stay tuned for our official transition into Texas Youth Career Readiness. Once again, thank you everybody, and I will see you on the next episode.